I'm so passionate and excited about this space, and I'm really looking forward to sharing everything that I've learned with you guys, because yeah, we're not really given this information in school or through our career. So I had to go looking for it, and it took the pandemic for me to start asking questions. So I'm keen to just share all of this information, and it might feel like a lot of information. So if anything comes up or you have any queries, do make sure to note them down, because there'll be an opportunity at the end of the presentation to ask questions, and I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. So just to start off, I want to give the disclaimer that I am not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing information that I've gathered through my experience and research, and I'm also sharing what experts are saying about the market. I'm not advising you to make any investments. Any decision you make at your own risk. So now that that's out the way, we can get into it. Okay, so as Linda said, I started my first business in 2012 when I was 25, and I had heard about Bitcoin then because one of the executives I was placing through my recruitment business said that he highly recommended that I integrate a way to be paid in Bitcoin into my process and into the business. And I thought, what is Bitcoin and how can I integrate it? So I tried to do some research. There wasn't really much information out there, and the information that was available felt very technical and overwhelming to me. So I did nothing about it and just thought, I've got enough on my plate trying to grow a new business. I'm not going to complicate things with going into that. So I just pushed it to the side. Then Bitcoin came into my awareness again in 2017, when a lot of my friends were making a lot of money from it. And I'm talking life-saving amounts of money. And I still did nothing because I couldn't understand how they're invested in some sort of digital currency and they're making money from it. It just still felt way too, I had a little bit of cognitive dissonance with it. So I pushed it to the side. So this might sound familiar to you. So perhaps you've heard about it when it was created in 2008 and was selling for pennies, or maybe you're hearing a lot about it now in the news and you still don't know what it is or what to do and how to get involved. Or maybe it seems too complicated to understand, so you give up on taking any action. Or perhaps you think you've missed the window because it's reached its all-time highs. I mean, it's gone from being valued at 40 cents to now being valued at 58,000. So there's no way it can go up anymore, right? You're too late. Or perhaps you feel that you need to have a lot of money before you're able to invest. Well, what if I told you that once you get your head around it, it's actually easier than you think to get started? And what if I told you that experts are predicting that Bitcoin's just scratching the surface when it comes to its valuation? And also, it's, despite billionaires and institutions getting involved right now, it's still not yet widely adopted. It's been said that there are 160 million Bitcoin holders. And considering that we're a global population of 8 billion, we're nowhere near full adoption of Bitcoin. So I say all of that to say that it's not too late. Anyone can take part in this exciting opportunity, and I will demonstrate why in more detail in this presentation. Okay, so you might be wondering how I went from pushing Bitcoin away and not understanding it, becoming an investor. Well, as I said, the pandemic happened and the world went into lockdown, and governments in the UK and US in particular started offering help to people and companies. So the business I used to run, the first business I had, was an executive recruitment business that placed executives into the NHS, which is a UK government run health service. And one thing that was consistent and persistent is that they never had enough money. Everyone was complaining. No money for new initiatives, no money to hire the right clients, no money, no money, no money. So when all of a sudden governments had enough money to offer small business loans and grants that they didn't have to pay back and pay people to stay at home, I questioned, where was this money coming from? Who had to pay it back? And what would be the impact on the economy and me potentially? And that's what got me going down a rabbit hole of researching. And what I learned blew my mind. I was surprised that I didn't have access to the fundamental information that really impacted how I lived and what the future would be for me, my family, and future generations. And I found out, what I found out about Bitcoin and the platform that it operates on, blockchain, made investing a no-brainer for me. So as Linda said earlier, I invested in Bitcoin in July 2020 when it was valued at 10,500. And I had so many people around me telling me, this is its peak. There's no point in getting in now. It's too late. You're not going to make any money. And by between January and March 2020, it reached its all-time high of 58,000. So that's a nearly 60% return, a 600% return in my investment. And that's just Bitcoin. I've got 13 other alternative coins in my portfolio, which have bigger results, but bigger returns, but we won't address that in this presentation. I'm going to tell you why I went from not investing to realizing that investing in Bitcoin and crypto was the best decision I could ever make. So the reason I put this training together, as I alluded to earlier, is because I believe that everyone should have access and be taught the information that I've learned myself. It's all out in the mainstream, but in most cases, you really have to work hard to try and find it. So at minimum, I want to be sure that you leave this masterclass feeling informed about what's going on in the financial market and understand how it impacts you. At most, I want you to be clear about how blockchain and Bitcoin are a viable solution set to transform the challenges created by the existing and current financial system. So Bitcoin has risen and thrived as a result of the failures existing in the financial system. In order for you to understand what happened, I'll have to go back in time and run through the timeline of key events that have taken place in history, just to provide some context. The first event I want to mention is one that took place in 1913. Bankers and politicians in the US decided that it was in the public's best interest and theirs to have a permanent central bank. The Federal Reserve Bank was born thereafter as President Woodrow signed a law to create it. At this time, the US dollar was tied to gold, which is how it claimed its value. 20 years later, in 1933, President Roosevelt issued a controversial executive order that forced all US citizens to sell their gold to the Federal Reserve at a fixed price or go to prison, which isn't really a choice. Most people are going to choose to sell it, right? So meanwhile, the Federal Reserve Bank offered cash to foreign governments in return for their gold. So as gold flowed into the US dollars flowed across the globe. The next event that took place was World War II, which devastated every world economy except for the US. The dollar had become the world's most stable and trusted currency, and other currencies pegged their currency against the US dollar, which at the time could still be redeemed for gold. Foreign nations eventually had enough of the US collecting all the gold and printing cash, and they had more value in US dollars than the US had gold in its vaults. In 1971, President Nixon severed the US dollar from the gold standard. From then on, no one could demand gold for US dollars. The US dollar was now backed by only the full faith and credit of the US government, and this is where the challenges began. So in 1971, the Federal Reserve had free rein to print money backed by nothing, and this has significantly increased the money supply. The more money that's created, the greater the supply, the higher the inflation. So what's inflation? Inflation means that all the money in circulation is less valuable than before, and the purchasing power of the US dollar is less. So it costs more today than in previous years to buy the same basket of goods. I often gasp when I reminisce of how much it used to cost to get on the bus in the UK. It used to be like 40 pence to get on the bus. And now you're paying between £3 and £4 for a return bus trip, which is crazy. And that's how inflation works. So as a result of the pandemic, it's been said that the Fed has printed 40% more US dollars than it's ever printed in its whole history. So considering that since 1971, the dollar has lost 96% of its value, so those who are holding savings in cash in their banks are pretty much having their money burnt to nothing. So the dollar is on a fast race to zero, and every currency that uses the dollar as a reserve is set to devalue drastically also. So it's clear that fiat currency is failing due to how it has been and continues to be managed by the central banks. The 2007-2008 financial crash exposed the cracks and failures in the system. It was the first time that everyone globally was able to witness and experience the impact of Wall Street's management of their money. People realized that their money wasn't safe with banking institutions, and the impact was increased unemployment and poverty, but the governments opted to bail out the banks instead of the people who were impacted. And it was in this environment that Bitcoin emerged. So Bitcoin forces people to ask questions about the fundamentals of money. Now I'll go into comparing the existing system to Bitcoin so that you can understand how Bitcoin provides a solution to the challenges that are faced and why it's so valuable. Now, most of us don't think much about the monetary changes that have taken place over the decades, let alone where money comes from or how it works. We just use it and do our best to earn more than we spend, which is a challenge given the significantly reduced purchasing power of fiat currency. We're now working harder and more hours than before, and many people are making just enough to get by. Before the pandemic, the dollar had already been devalued by 96%, and now it's about to fail completely. And when it does, as I said earlier, other currencies around the globe that use the dollar as a reserve will fail also. So the Fed definitely needs to be audited, but by who? No one knows what they're doing and why. The Fed can create money anytime they want, and they call this quantitative easing. When they increase the money supply, it makes currency that you and I have worth less and pretty much worthless. We've given the power to print money to the same banks that have created the financial crisis. The entire system is built on trust. If all bank customers demanded 3% of their deposits in cash, this run on banks would reveal the truth. They just wouldn't be able to deliver against that demand because they don't have the money in their vaults to do so. So what do I mean by that? Well, like me, you probably think that you put your money into a bank account and draw from it when needed. You probably also think that the banks are custodians of your money, right? Wrong. It's now the property of the bank and their bank balance, and they can do anything they want with it, and this is how. Let's say your bank balance is $100, but the bank only holds $3 and loans $97 to Mike to buy something. In the bank's computers, you still have $100 showing digitally on your account, but Mike has $97 of your money in his account. There's no cash, gold, or anything else backing up Mike's account, just a promise from him to pay it back. This new money is created as debt. When that $97 is spent by Mike, it's deposited into a bank by a shopkeeper, and then it's lent out again and again and again. And this is called the cycle of debt. This process of loaning out more money than the bank actually has on hand is called fractional reserve banking. Banks earn millions every year loaning virtual money. All new money is debt. In 2004, a lot of you might not know, but the US Congress snuck in a provision into the bill that allows banks to make risky derivative bets with bank deposits, and lost deposits must be paid back by US taxpayers. So based on this, the example that's given, you know that what the banks are doing with your money, and you know what the banks are doing with your money, and even though you're not aware, you'll be responsible for paying back their mistakes if anything happens. This also means that if a crash similar to what happened in 2008 happens again, the bank can stop you having access to your money and use your funds to bail themselves out. So what makes Bitcoin so valuable in comparison to fiat currency? And when I say fiat, I mean pounds, dollars, euros, etc. You might be wondering how a digital currency can retain value when anyone can make 1 million copies. Well, Bitcoin is actually limited. It's written in the code that there are only 24 million Bitcoin created, and there cannot be any more or any less. That makes it a deflationary asset, which means that the more people acquire it, the higher it's valued. Bitcoin is not a file on a computer. It's an entry in a publicly distributed open source ledger called the blockchain. The The blockchain is a platform in which Bitcoin operates. The ledger holds the record of every single Bitcoin in existence and every Bitcoin transaction ever made. It always balances out because no Bitcoin ever leaves it. So when a Bitcoin is sent from one wallet to another, what they're really sending is the control over that part of the database to a unique key for the new owner. As the network processes transactions, it constantly synchronizes the one ledger across the network. So every transaction is verified and recorded by the network. So a Bitcoin cannot be forged. Digital currency cannot be debased with cheap metals or printed by the billion at will, or trillion in the case of what's going on now. And because that blockchain is public, it can't be controlled by any one person or controller. It provides a way to not be dependent on governments that could check on your bank accounts and take your finances at will. So one of the benefits of removing the middleman is lower transactional costs. Many businesses today, for example, accept PayPal, credit card payments, or wire transfers, and all the third parties that facilitate these transactions charge fees. Cutting out the middleman saves the global economy $200 billion in transactional fees. So everyone can view and change it. The blockchain is an open source software protocol, like much of the code supporting the internet. Open source means that anyone can use the protocol and no one person can control it. So every change is open to the public and it's transparent. So Bitcoin was first created by Satoshi, and since then there have been hundreds of developers who have been contributing to its security and its features. So there are certain characteristics that currency must meet in order for it to be valuable, some of which have already been covered in this presentation. This list gives both the essential and desired characteristics. So on the left, in the light gray, you can see the essential characteristics, which is that it needs to be durable, it needs to be interchangeable, divisible, portable, acceptable, limited, scarce, have a proven track record, and secure. And the desired attributes are that it needs to be anonymous, decentralized, have no third-party risk, smart, and untraceable. As you can see from the columns, I've highlighted the attributes that each of the currency meet with high correlation in a dark blue, and fiat currency, so the US dollar, the pound, the euro, it meets less of those requirements. Gold is the next best thing, and Bitcoin meets even more of those requirements. So that's why it's being seen as a solid store of value. So you still unclear about why Bitcoin is so valuable? Even with all this information, I was like, this is a lot of information to take in, and there's more. I've done my best to make it as high level as possible, but you might still be thinking, I still don't get it. I still don't understand how digital assets could be so valuable. The simple answer is that its value comes from being widely adopted, which is what solidifies its validity. So the dollar actually lost its real value in 1971 when it was separated from the gold standard, but we continue to use fiat currency as a form of payment. So we as consumers gave it its value. In the same way, as people are becoming disillusioned about the existing financial system, they're moving towards new solutions that breed more trust and security for their assets. So the value is shifting. And here are some examples of that. So anyone who follows the financial markets knows that the dollar is on its last legs. Well-known investors are moving into Bitcoin fast. Some are even selling their stakes in gold and investing more into Bitcoin, and some are going from 20% of their portfolio in Bitcoin to being all in. Raoul Pal is a former hedge fund manager who retired at the age of 36 and has since become a macro analyst for the financial markets. Okay, so he was advising people to invest 20% of their investments into Bitcoin about 6 months ago. And as of 2 months ago, he's put all of his investments portfolio into Bitcoin and has said that when he generates more money, he'll invest more as he now sees its potential. Ray Dalio is another billionaire hedge fund manager who is well known for saying cash is trash. When he was an advocate for investing in gold as a solid store of value. And at one point he spoke badly about Bitcoin, but now is a believer and it's in the value of Bitcoin, and it's now part of his investment portfolio. Robert Kiyosaki, who is the best-selling author of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book series, he took some time to look into Bitcoin, and he's known for saying old folks like him don't get it. But after interviewing a number of crypto investors on his podcast, he got on board and would complain about how much exchanges are limiting the amount that he wanted to invest in Bitcoin. So as Linda said at the introduction, a lot of corporations and institutions are getting in fast on Bitcoin. Some of you may have read that Elon Musk invested 1.5 billion of Tesla's money into Bitcoin, and within a few months saw a $750 million return in his investment, which is $50 million more than the whole company made in a year. Michael Saylor invested 500 million of his company's treasury into Bitcoin and held an event to encourage other institutions and corporations to invest. He has since then generated and raised $1.05 billion in loans to invest in Bitcoin because he knows where it's going. PayPal are allowing users to purchase and pay for goods and also purchase crypto on their platform. MasterCard have also adopted the ability to facilitate Bitcoin payments. BNY Mellon, America's oldest bank, plans to hold, transfer, and issue Bitcoins. So this is evidence that it's not going anywhere. If institutions and billionaires are seeing the potential of it, it's further solidifying its viability. So, as some of you may have heard last week, the US just approved another $1.9 million stimulus. And you know what that's going to do to the dollar? It's going to further devalue it. And investors are looking for a better store of money because they realize that inflation is causing them to lose money for the cash that they're leaving in the bank. As we have already covered, experts are actually predicting, they went from predicting that Bitcoin will hit $100,000 by the end of the year to saying that that could actually happen as soon as May, and it might reach 400,000 by the end of the year. They're also saying that in 5 to 10 years time, it could easily be valued at 1 to 10 million. So even though Bitcoin is a volatile asset and it's been on an upward trajectory since it's created, it actually goes through cycles of what they call a bull run, which is what we're in now, where it has an upward trend. So when it's in that bull run, it goes through cycles of 3. And we're currently at the beginning of the second run of a new cycle, which will end between the 100 and 400K valuation. So based on everything that I've covered, it's clear to say that Bitcoin is an obvious store of value along with gold and silver when the market crashes. Even though it's 12 years since its development, it's still early to get involved and add it to your investment portfolio. Some people think that it's too late to get invested in it, but based on the stats that I've told you and the information I've shared, I think we'll all agree that it's definitely not too late. The returns on investments are unlike anything you'll ever experience anywhere else. The credibility of the blockchain and Bitcoin as a financial system continues to increase as more corporations and credible investors add it to their portfolio. It restores transparency and trust that has been lost from the old financial system. It empowers you to manage your own finances without being at mercy of a financial system that has proven not to have your best interest in mind. Now that you understand the opportunity, you're probably wondering, how do I invest? Well, it took me months of research to get to this level of acumen about it. So I thought about what I needed, and based on that, I created a program that makes it super simple and straightforward to get involved. The course that I created will walk you through all of the relevant steps you need to make your first investment in Bitcoin safely. So you might be wondering why I'm referring to safety when talking about making your first investment. Well, I know people who invested years ago and they just left their money on exchanges. Exchanges are very vulnerable to being hacked. And if your coins are stolen as part of that hacking, then they're gone forever. There's no insurance, there's no replacement of your coins, they're just gone. So one of the things I teach you in the course is how to move your coins from exchanges and store them safely. And although this is a short course, it's highly impactful because by the end of it, you will fully understand the value of Bitcoin. You would have had all the step-by-step actions you need. You'll have set yourself up with an investor account on more than one platform, and you would have invested in your first Bitcoin. The course also includes ongoing support from me. So I've become extremely passionate about this industry, and I'm constantly keeping up to date with developments, and I'm keeping my pulse on the market. So as part of enrolling in the course, I will be making sure that my subscribers know when to sell their coins, know when to hold, and are receiving relevant updates and information impacting their investments, because it can be a little bit nerve-wracking watching the fluctuations and not really understanding what's happening. A lot of people sold their money when they thought the market had crashed in 2017, and those who held onto their coins are laughing all the way to the bank right now. So being able to have access to that sort of information just provides peace of mind and lets you know, provides a little bit of certainty in terms of what's going on in the market. And you'll also have access to a community of people that are on the same journey as you, so that you can all share resources. So if you feel that that information will be valuable to hit the ground running, you can register for the course at www.cryptowisdomonline.com/Bitcoin 101. The price of the course has already been discounted to $500, but as Linda said, I would be giving you, so I'm going to honor what she said and increase the discount to 50%. I know that was my mistake. If you register by Sunday using the promo code LeadHERship. So make sure that you put the H after the D, which is the community in which we're having this conversation, and you'll have the option to either pay in full or in 2 installments. If you pay in full, then you'll also get access to the instructions on how to buy crypto anonymously, which could be beneficial for those of you who don't have exchanges available in the countries that you reside in, or just anyone that wants to be discreet about how they're purchasing crypto. I've also shared my wider crypto portfolio with those who pay in full. So again, you can register at cryptowisdomonline.com/Bitcoin 101 using the promo code LeadHERship.
Thank you, Linda. That was absolutely a masterclass in Bitcoin. I thought I knew a lot about it until I listened to you. That's amazing. And everyone, we are going to be opening up the line for questions. So I'm going to start, Linda, just to get the conversation going, but I would invite people to please get off mute when you have a question, and we'll just chit chat for the next 30 minutes about Bitcoin, any questions that you specifically have. I see that Keith has asked in the chat, are you, Linda, going to advise when to buy and sell? And is there a minimum investment in Bitcoin? So I'm going to let you respond to Keith, and then I'll follow up with a question or two.
Okay, perfect. So good questions. Yes, I will now. Investors are saying now is the time to buy, right? And I would always say that there should be a proportion of your portfolio, if you do invest in Bitcoin, where you just leave it. You don't touch it. It's a long-term investment, because if it's going to be valued at $1 million to $10 million, you don't want to be pulling it out and then buying when it's higher, so then you actually get less Bitcoin for the amount that you've put in. So it's just safe to, because it's hard to predict exactly when you'll be able to ride the bull run unless you are able to learn how to trade. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the excess. So am I going to invite when to buy and sell? Yes. If you sign up to the course, then you will hear from me in terms of when we're at the end of the third cycle, the third peak of the the cycle. So there's 3 peaks. We're currently in the middle of the second, and then it's going to correct, is what they term it, and go down by about 50, 60%, and then it will go up again, and then it will drop about 80%. So I'll let you know before that happens. And I'm not going to let you know right at the tip, but I'll let you know close to the tip so that you can make sure that you catch it before it drops down. So the answer is yes, I will advise when to buy and sell. The beauty for the second question in terms of the minimum investment into Bitcoin is that there is no barrier to entry. So if you only have $50, you can invest $50, and that could be it. So there's no, I would say invest what you're willing to lose, because with everything it's still a risk. I followed some investors who told me to invest 20% of my net worth, and that's what I invested. I became more comfortable with it, and then I made the decision to increase it. So I'll never say exactly what you need to invest. That's something you need to decide for yourself, but it should be something that you feel comfortable losing if some black swan event happens and it gets wiped out. So
although that's super unlikely, it seems a lot more stable than the normal market that I think we all kind of play with, right? The stock market.
Exactly.
And so Elaine, that should answer your question too, which is, what is the minimum? Is it in the hundreds or the thousands? And as Linda just said, it can be $50, which is amazing. Let me just also ask, how much would you recommend to invest in Bitcoin? Linda, you said 20% of your net worth is what you decided to invest in Bitcoin. And I think you said, don't invest more than you're willing to lose. But is there sort of a general rule of thumb in terms of how much you would recommend to invest?
No, I think everyone's situation is very different. So it was interesting. I've been telling my family and friends, get on this. And they were procrastinating, I think, for the same reasons that I procrastinated at the start. So my sister had a birthday, and I said to her, listen, I can send you a present or I can give you Bitcoin. She opted for Bitcoin. So I got her to set up a wallet. I transferred Bitcoin to her, and then she watched it go up and she was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to invest more. So maybe it could be that if you're a little apprehensive, just get started with something that is just like nothing, it's minimal, and just observe it and get comfortable with it and watch what it does. And then if you feel more comfortable to make a little bit more. But yeah, everyone's financial situation is different. But putting your money in a bank, even though it might seem more comfortable, it's a lot more risky, because we know that money is being printed. So we know that inflation is happening. So we know your money is being devalued. So even though it feels like, oh, it's in a bank and it's protected, it's kind of probably more risky leaving it in cash than, because there are countries like Venezuela, Kenya, Argentina, Argentina specifically went from being one of the richest countries in the world to the point where they have to wheelbarrow money to a supermarket to buy goods, because the value of the money is pretty much minuscule. And this is what we're moving towards with fiat currency. So.
Yeah, very scary prospect. I'm noticing that Prakash, you are off mute. So do you have a question for Linda? Prakash, no?
Yeah, hi, yeah.
Did you have a question for Linda?
Oh, not present, no. I just bought some Bitcoins today, so...
Congrats.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm just reassuring myself. Thank you.
All
no
right.
questions for me.
So Linda, can you talk a little bit about the how people can purchase Bitcoin, sort of what the process is? You were talking about setting up a wallet. So can you talk a little bit about the process of purchasing Bitcoin and what that looks like?
Yeah, so a lot of people usually start purchasing via exchanges, and you would have to sign up, create an account, attach a bank or a credit card to it, buy Bitcoin. But usually people stop the process there, right? And as I said, that process is pretty risky, because you leave your money on the exchange and it's vulnerable to being hacked. Hackers are always trying to get access to coins that are on an exchange. And if they do get access and your coins are one of those that disappear, there's no way of getting it back. So there are hot and cold wallets to move your cash to, which are more secure than an exchange. And they have different level of security as well. But this is all covered in great detail in the program if anyone wanted to invest in the program, but you would essentially move it from an exchange onto a wallet.
Okay. And Linda, before you talked about the fact that you consider Bitcoin to be a long-term investment. So you would, rather than getting caught up in the daily sorts of ups and downs, you would recommend leaving your investment in Bitcoin over a duration of time. How long do you think you should leave your investment in Bitcoin?
Again, I think that depends on the individual, right? So there are people who are going to, so what I will be advising my subscribers to do is at the top of the third cycle, the peak of the third cycle, to take profits and invest it in assets like real estate and bring in cash flow, waiting for the drop in order to buy more Bitcoin so that you can acquire more Bitcoin at a lower value based on the profits that you've been able to achieve. And each of these bull runs are in 4-year cycles. But there might be people like Michael Saylor who invested 500 million of MicroStrategy's treasury and raised 1.05 billion in loans to invest in Bitcoin. He said that he's never going to take it out. There's no point. He's just going to keep it in and hold. So if you're looking to reserve money to generate generational wealth, that's a whole different outcome to, I want to make the money work for me. You might even have an even shorter term goal, which is something else. So you would then have to teach yourself how to trade and then learn how to kind of ride the waves that happen in between. In every day, Bitcoin is so volatile. It could be like a few days ago, it was 48,000. Today is 56,000. So that's a difference of $8,000 that could have been made if you were trading, but I wouldn't advise that initially, especially because I made the mistake of looking at that and thinking, oh my gosh, I could have made that. So now that it's high, I'm going to sell it. And then it went higher after. So I actually bought in at less Bitcoin because I was being emotional about it. And then I learned, and I'm like, no, until I learn how to become an analyst and read the charts, I'm not going to try and play with catching the highs and lows. So if you have short-term goals in terms of becoming a day trader, that's another skill to acquire. If you have medium-term goals in terms of, I'm willing to kind of ride out the bull market, come out high and then go back in when it's low, that's again another strategy. If you're like, oh, well, I'm just going to wait it out because I know where it's going to be in 5-10 years time, that's another strategy. So it just depends on the individual and where they are.
That makes sense. So can we go back one slide so that everyone can see again where to go if they're interested in signing up with your program? Yeah, and then I'm going to open it up for questions to everyone else. So Ellen Ford or Brooke Cullison, Christopher, Daniel, anyone else have any questions for Linda or any experiences?
I had a question. I know this is focused on Bitcoin, but I'm curious about alternative coins. And are any of those maybe even better for early adoption right now?
Because I'm towing this line of not being a financial advisor, I don't necessarily want to give recommendations of alternative coins to invest in. I do share my portfolio. I have invested in alternative coins. I guess if you go on CoinMarketCap, you'll see the top 10 coins that have the largest market adoption and largest market cap, and that shows you where people are putting their money. And Ethereum is one of those because it's a platform that allows for decentralized finance, which is what the appeal of blockchain is. There's no government or central bank controlling everything. It's this platform where people can engage directly with each other when it comes to transactions, whether that's buying a home, whether that's taking out loans, whatever the case may be. So there are coins out there, and there are really new adopted coins that are at pennies that are set. So just to give you a perspective, there's 6,000 approximate alternative coins. So there's a lot out there to choose from. I'm only invested in 13 that I've taken a lot of time to do research on. Some of them are going to go absolutely bananas and give you thousands of percentage in return in investment, and some of them are, they refer to them as shit coins, are going to go nowhere. So it is risky, and there needs to be a lot of research done. So the reason I focus on Bitcoin is because Bitcoin's the mothership of all of the coins, right? It's already been proven, it's not going anywhere. It's the foundation. When Bitcoin does well, all of the other alternative coins do well. So right now, I'm just really, in terms of this presentation, focused on getting people to shift their mentality in terms of the way they look at and relate to fiat currency and cash, and how to retain the value of their cash and make more from it. You can make a ridiculous more amount in altcoins and use that to pump back into Bitcoin. But yeah, I don't want to be responsible for recommending specifics.
All right. And Elaine has asked in the chat, what is the cost of $300? How long does the training course last for? And is it on a certain day, or is it something that they can do at their own sort of schedule?
So you will be up and running within a day. It's a do-it-yourself pre-recorded program that guides you step by step. You get to see how to buy Bitcoin anonymously, how to buy crypto anonymously, how to use different wallets, what they mean, which one is higher in security, so it just allows you to provide information to make choices based on what works for you. So you'll be up and running in a day, and there's going to be certain things that you're not going to implement now, but you'll have lifetime access to those videos, so that when you get to the stage where you're ready to implement the next step, you'll have access to the resources.
That's great. Thank you, Linda. All right. So anyone else have any questions? Glory, Keith, Mark, Nick, Owen, Portia, anyone have any other questions about Bitcoin specifically, or blockchain and how the two are related? Linda, maybe you want to just touch on that a little bit. You mentioned it earlier in the presentation, how blockchain sort of manages Bitcoin, but can you talk a little bit about those two terms and how they're related?
Yeah, so Bitcoin itself is the currency, and there's only 24 million made. So it addresses the limitation and the scarcity attribute of currency. So it can only increase in value as more people adopt it. No one can print it, no one can control it, no one can pretend to you that you've got a certain amount in your account and then use it to loan people any money. So it creates an authentic, kind of strong, stable way of retaining value. Blockchain as a platform is open source. So the code is available to everyone. Anyone can go and alter it, anyone can view it. And also when Bitcoin is transacted, there's an open ledger that is where every single transaction is focused. So if someone wanted to go and look, the thing about the anonymity is that people might not be able to see how much you specifically own in Bitcoin, but they can see how many Bitcoins are focused on a specific address. So it's so transparent that it's hard to create fraud. You can't counterfeit Bitcoin. And I think there's a lot of press out at the moment that it's for money laundering and you can counterfeit. That's already happening with fiat currency, and it's easy to happen with fiat currency because you can literally print another dollar. You can't do that with Bitcoin, and there is a lot more integrity on the platform in which it operates on, because it creates this peer-to-peer way of working, which creates transparency and trust.
That's great. One last question in the last 5 minutes, and it's from Keith, and he said, "Where can I see trends analysis for Bitcoin and other kinds of coins?"
There is a site called TradingView where you can go, and there is also a website called coinmarketcap.com, and it will give you information about each core coin. And if you use Coinbase also, you can also get education in terms of the background of each coin. So TradingView and CoinMarketCap, I would say a good place to go.
All right, that's perfect. Linda, I can't thank you enough for sharing your wisdom and all the research that you have done to become so wise about this really relevant topic. This is a way that especially women can embrace their financial freedom, and it's such an exciting new area of investment. And for all the reasons that you mentioned, it's something that I think all savvy, smart investors are beginning to invest in and beginning to trade in. So Linda, again, I am so grateful for your time. I am so appreciative of all the research that you shared with us. Linda and Mbagwu, you are amazing, and we are grateful for you. And again, everyone, if you're interested in the incredible offer that Linda's providing for those people that registered for today's event, please register at cryptowisdomonline.com/Bitcoin101. And if you use the promo code LeadHERship, then Linda's going to very generously provide a discount on that training program. So again, thank you everyone. Really, really very appreciative of your time this afternoon. And really, again, want to thank Linda and Mbagwu. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Oh, Keith wanted you to...
What would you like us to repeat, Keith?
Yeah. So Keith wanted you to repeat the trends report.
Okay. TradingView.com and CoinMarketCap.
There we go. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a lovely afternoon.
Oh, the site for the course is on the slide, if you can see it. It's www.cryptowisdomonline.com/Bitcoin101, and the promo code is LeadHERship.
There we go. Perfect. All right, everyone. And you'll receive an excerpt of today's recording, and really look forward to being able to see all of you on Linda's program. So thank you so much.